All right, good morning. We are here ready for action. Greg Guenthner, good morning, sir.
What's happening?
Happy,
You sound good this morning. Nice and loud.
happy Tuesday.
Yeah.
We're ready for action. I was just looking at some of the top movers. I'm late to this game. You've been doing this for hours, so I'm trying to get caught up. But I saw one of the top movers was a company called Branch Out Foods. And then at first I'm like, oh no, this has got to, and it's like plant-based food or whatever. I was like, oh no, this is gonna be like insects. They're gonna try and get us to start eating bugs or
Would
whatever.
not eat the bugs.
Yeah, we're not eating the bugs. But then I looked, it's just these little packaged vegetables and fruits. They're like dehydrated fruits and vegetables. So good on you, America and the markets. We're eating fruits and vegetables. Everything's good. They're up like 56%.
Well, I think this is like the first, real start of fall right here. Kids are back in school, right? Like everybody's back on their diet, like
True.
that was our summer weekend right there. So now I guess everybody's eating prepackaged vegetables, maybe just to
Yeah.
try to get off on the right feet. But it is like, it's a Monday, Tuesday. Um, so I actually was laying awake in bed at like 3:30 this morning, just like wondering if I was prepared enough, for the day.
Well, I wasn't doing that. I was like, my dogs were like making noises. I'm like, what are you doing? So same deal though.
Well, it's a short trading week, they can be tough sometimes. We get all discombobulated, and like this is like we kind of traditionally like to say this is when the adults are back from the beach. The interns are kicked off the trading desks, and the real pros are back at work. At least that's how the old school guys talk about September. And September can be a volatile, like tricky time of the year. This can be a rough month. Seasonality kind of starts working against us in September. So we're going to see like, just how resilient this market can be after a pretty wild August,
Yeah.
with the big meltdown to start the month, and then the very quick record recovery, and then we've just been sort of marking time, as far as SPY is concerned. The S&P has basically gone nowhere since the middle of August. Now we're just back and forth, back and forth. We had a really nice close on Friday, some very good vibes going into Labor Day weekend with the big push into the closing bell. But this morning, a lot of red. Have you seen it? A lot of red on the
Yep.
screen.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a good reminder, right? You get the sell in May go away. Well, it's now September, and if the big boys are coming back and we're getting some a little bit new direction, because say again, the concept is what Gunnar was just saying, right? They're people are at the Hamptons, they're doing whatever, they're not trading, and all of a sudden they come back today and they're like, you know what? This is the way the world's going, and some big money starts making moves heading into the end of the year here and setting up for 2025. So we've got a lot on the agenda. It looks like we've got a good amount of people in YouTube and chat. If you're in there, go ahead, say hi. If you've got any questions for Gunner or comments or tickers, go ahead and throw them in there. In general, what we're looking at here on the agenda, will we see a September surprise? Will we see a change in the markets? Gunner's going to break it down. We want to talk about the life after NVIDIA earnings, where semi's headed. What can we see in that sector? Look into the Mag Sevens. We're going to look into crypto, which has been an up and down mess, which is the life of crypto. So it's doing its thing. We've got some rotation trades, all sorts of things shaking up right now. And not to mention, like right, the market's red right now. I think crude was down 4%. So it's like there's all sorts of different pieces of this puzzle coming together. So
Yeah,
Gunner,
as you mentioned that, I saw earlier that Brent is now negative on the year. So I mean, oil is getting smacked, man. Like,
yeah,
what are we down? What's light crude down, as of right now? I think it's down like, yeah, down almost 4%. We're below $71 on WTI right now. I mean, uh, there's some selling going on today. There's a lot of red in commodities. Precious metals are red. The dollar is perking up, or it was perking up a little bit earlier.
yeah.
Um, so we'll see how all that shakes out. But right now, like you said, like I think people are settling into life after NVIDIA earnings. All last week, that's all anybody could talk about. We were talking about like how walking past the muted CNBC television right behind you over your what is that, your left shoulder right there? Yeah. How it was all NVIDIA all the time last week, and now we're seeing some follow through to the downside. from these semiconductors. I think that, and I wrote about this a little bit earlier in chat. I think that this is going to throw some investors for a loop. I think there was a lot of bulls going into this NVIDIA earnings report, and it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to beat and raise. But would that be enough really to catapult this stock back toward its all-time highs that it set back earlier this summer? It was not, and we've seen a pretty steady drop since that earnings report came out. I think we were what like on the verge of breaking out above 130-ish going into earnings, and then earnings hit, we get a drop, and then it did level out a bit on Friday, but we're continuing lower today. And as of right now, sitting just above 110 in the 112 area. That's right back to where it was at the end of May. So not the end of the world, but again, this could be a choppier period. I think personally that this is healthy. This is what the doctor ordered for a hot stock like this. I mean, if we look at NVIDIA, what are we up year to date? 130% year to date still, even after this little slide off of the highs there. I don't think this is the end of the world for this stock. I do think, it doesn't hurt for it to bleed off some of that excess enthusiasm that it built up from just going straight up for the first 6 months of the year. There's nothing wrong with this action. And I like it even more because if we're in a situation where the market doesn't totally fall apart this month or give us a ton of trouble, I think this could lead to additional rotations away from the mega caps, away from these semiconductor plays. And you can see here, like we can pull up the heat map. I mean, oh, look, we're another leg lower right here. As we started talking, we're talking the market lower, man. But you can see it's pretty obvious, like where the red is coming from. The semiconductor squares are bright red over here. Oil's getting hammered, energy's getting hammered as well. But yeah, these stocks need a break, man, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're not in a big semiconductor bear market. There's no need to freak out. I think people will freak out because they've been programmed all year to say like these stocks only go up. Let them go down a little bit. Let them catch their breath. We could be in a situation where if we do see mega caps lower and semiconductors lower and the rest of the market doesn't really follow suit, we could have kind of an undercover rotation rally where the averages are being pulled down, all these cap weighted averages being pulled down by the mega caps and the semis and these bigger stocks, while we have some of the growthier names maybe continue to perk up in the September rate cut. I don't know, maybe that's wishful thinking, but I think that's a possibility in this market that we have to kind of be on the lookout for. But yeah, like that's where my focus remains, because there's so many of these really big bases that are setting up in these stocks that were unloved last year, that really got hammered in 2022. The stocks that didn't survive the rate hike cycle, can the better ones actually base out and break out of those big bases and move higher? That's kind of what I have my eyeballs on for if this market can regain some stability at some point this week. Are those going to be our big breakout trades?
Yeah. What if we go into that? I mean, do you have a list of those tickers that are sort of they might not be buys right now, but they're kind of basing out and they just look like that could be where rotation goes? Do you have anything on that list?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, this is something that we've been talking about that you actually brought up to me with some other folks that looks really good, and that's Roblox. I know it's kind of a silly stock, and I mean, back before AI was really a big theme in the markets, what was the buzzword before that everybody was talking about? It was metaverse, right? It was Facebook changing its name to Meta. This was all 2021 stuff, right?
Facebook is so stupid.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, yes, but I remember everybody dogging on Zuckerberg and all that nonsense with like the metaverse stuff and those little cartoon avatars, and it's like everybody's gonna live in the metaverse, and they're gonna have little avatars, and that's how we're gonna do our work. We're gonna put on goggles and we're gonna look at cartoons of each other, and I mean, that was the big thing. I mean, Roblox is obviously a kid's game, gaming platform, which is like, I guess, metaverse based. Up, I've never Robloxed before. I don't know if you have.
Well, and yeah, real quick, just so if anyone doesn't know, Roblox, say kids have iPads now or cell phones or whatever. You can go on an iPad, You log in, it's an app, you go into it. I don't even think you have to pay for it. And then there's a bunch of like free little games you can play. And they're all, I think it's somewhat open source. Like anyone can become a developer for Roblox. And they make these little games. And what it is, they're dumb. Like you can be like a cat and walk around the street. You can be like in the military and like drive a boat around or fly a plane around or whatever. And then it's all these other users. So they're all real people. So you can go into these little worlds and it's like, oh, you're a cat. And there's like 300 other little cats around wandering around the streets or whatever. And that's like, they get people in here and then you can buy things. Like if you want your cat to have like a special hat, you can buy it for a couple bucks. So it's fairly dumb, but it's very sticky. The
Yeah.
kids, like I like every parent has this. We have problems. We're like, hey, get off those iPads. We got everything limited now and everything. But if I didn't do that, they would just sit in Roblox and just, it's a video game. It's very sticky. You can meet up there with friends and be talking to them while you're playing. So it's one of those things where I wouldn't fight that trend of like, that's a sticky platform. Like kids want to be in it.
Yeah. And this was at one point a hot stock. This was a hot pandemic trading stock. I mean, this chart's going back
That's
to
a SPAC or IPO.
huh?
That was an IPO. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it came on the market right at the perfect time. I mean, early 2021, ramped up, was pushing 140 bucks back in November of 21. That was right when everything was starting to roll over. All those growth names started to roll over into Thanksgiving and then kind of set off that chain of events that kind of began the whole 2022 bear market right there. And you can see this thing was clobbered. I mean, it went from 140 and then its bear market lows were down here near 20 bucks. I mean, absolutely obliterated. But ever since then, it's been working on something resembling a base, and it's been creeping up on the right-hand side of it for some time now, since back here when it announced earnings back in May. I like earnings like this, where you see a huge negative reaction and then it eats it away and everybody buys it back a few weeks later. And then we had earnings again. This was the little August meltdown right here, but it came right back. And now it's working on pushing up into this area right here. I feel like it's still flagging. I mean, yeah, it's down today. Everything's down today in the tech space. But I mean, I feel like if this can get back over into the mid 44s and break into 45 bucks, I think it really honestly starts testing the top end of this big base here, and it could really break out hard. I think there's a lot of eyeballs on this potentially because it is such a big base and it has been looking really constructive lately. But this is what I'm talking about when I say like maybe these are some of the stocks that can kind of sneak higher if we do get some of those bigger rotations happening in the markets. This is one of my favorite charts out there right now. I'm kind of stalking it to see if we can put on a good play on something like this. We're in between earnings. We've had a nice earnings drift higher right here. Little interruption from the August, yen panic right there. But ever since then, looks higher. Looks like it's flagging. And if this really truly is like, just a little flag right here and it breaks out above 45, it's really going to go. And I wouldn't be surprised for this to get even more eyeballs on it once it starts making those 52-week high lists. It's going to have to get over. It's going to have to get over like $47. But I think it'll really start to attract that attention and people will start taking serious looks at it once again. Because like I said, this has been dead money for years now.
Yeah.
For a couple solid years, this has gone nowhere but down or, really frustrated people. And, that's what the market does. What's the saying? It's going to scare you out or it's going to wear you out. This is a wear you out. It's scared people out here, but if you hung on, it's just worn you out right here with will it or won't it. This is a huge range going from like 45 all the way down to 25 and back multiple times. It's been a complete mess. But yeah, it's been firming up all year. It's certainly felt like it. And if it breaks out of this base, pow, to the moon. I think this is a good one. And I think there's a bunch of names that look similar to this out there right now that are worth like just keeping an eye on. I don't necessarily recommend like, trying to jump into these early. I mean, we could have a situation because it's September and the market rolls over a bit and these just take more time. But for the most part, the charts are setting up like this and the ones that are holding their own on down days like this and aren't down too much and are still, consolidating nice and tight, I think they're worth keeping an eye on late into the week, early next week. These could turn out to be some really solid trades.
Yeah. I think like you were saying, we've got some people in the office like that have action on Roblox. I don't have a trade right now. Gunnar, I don't know. Do you have a trade or anything personally?
No,
No.
I own a few shares, but I don't have an options trade on
Got it.
this starting. I bought shares a while ago, somewhere along in here.
You didn't get worn out
And
yet.
I'm feeling, and that's going to be a theme of this call. I'm very worn out, and I'm feeling worn out by a few themes in this market. So, like between this and Bitcoin, I feel like the wear you out theme is like very strong right now. Getting worn out by these spin cycles that we're in.
Yeah. Anything else on that list? What other charts do you like looking at? What else is anything else
Well,
basing on any other
well, I think
rotation
there's
plays?
another like another formerly hot stock, maybe not so formerly hot stock, but a newer IPO, Reddit. I have to zoom in on this guy, but this was one of those stocks that it really was hanging on nicely to this post IPO trend. It had that IPO flush right there that dropped it down in April to these lows near 38, 39. And it was really building nicely off of that. And we were talking about it around in here. Remember that? We were talking about it earlier this summer and how nice it was holding up and how it looked like it might want to break out. Well, it didn't, and it kind of fell apart. And now it's curling back around. Maybe it just needed to bleed off some of that excess steam, and we'll get a nice big, I don't want to say cup and handle, probably not big enough to be considered that. But I'd like to see it continue to firm up here. It has been firming up since mid-August, and maybe this is another one of those stocks that can really run and do well if we kind of get this sort of rate cut growth theme going into late September.
Yeah. And again, if anyone doesn't know Reddit, that's an IPO, but that's what I think their tagline is like, we're the front page of the internet. So they're very good at aggregating like sort of the hottest topics. They've got forums, people are, writing in and saying, oh, this is the biggest, most read article. So it is an interesting story. It is interesting also, like that's about 1/3 the market cap of Roblox. So again, there might be people that know Reddit that don't even know what Roblox is, but Roblox
Yeah,
is 3x the size
yeah.
via market cap, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, Reddit's looking good. Again, this is another theme. Remember, if something is a SPAC, you got to watch out because anything that's SPACed in the 2021s or whatever, it's a dangerous spot because they SPAC because they didn't want to do the legitimate IPO work. IPOs are a lot more legitimate. They've got a lot more probably initial buyers that are in there that care about it as opposed to sort of like a run and gun mentality. So anything that's an IPO, it feels a little bit better. So this one and Roblox, both IPOs had legitimate runs here. So they're looking
Are
decent.
you saying that there was a bubble in SPACs in 2020, 2021?
I mean, if a SPAC is over $10 right now, like God bless you.
Where's my favorite?
There
Where's
are
my
there are
favorite one?
certain
Where's
ones.
space? Space.
No,
You know
out of
I
here.
love space.
Base went to I don't know what.
Oh no. There's
Yeah.
where there this was the SPAC right here, wasn't it? This was an early one. This was in 2020. This was
Oh
pre-pandemic.
man. Yeah.
But did it split? Did it reverse split? Is that what happened? Yeah. Yikes. I'm sure it's
Yeesh.
fine. No big deal. Let's just ignore that. Um,
Yeah, that's the greatest move when a SPAC does a reverse split. So then they're making it look like it's $6. It's like, oh, it's $6. It's like, no, no, no. That is 1/20th of $6 is what you should be counting it as in SPAC world.
let's see what else do I have here. What about this guy? Remember this one? All my stocks are starting with R today. Wonder what's up with
Hmm.
that. Here's Roku. This was another big pandemic trader. Not as big of a base, and kind of messier. I guess this was kind of one of those ones that looked like it wanted to try to snap back with the rest of the market in 2023, and then it got the beat down. This looks like a big earnings drop
Yeah.
that happened earlier this year, and it's now trying to base off of that. It's been floating higher since it uh, faked lower right here. See, I like these moves where you have like, where you have like kind of a false breakdown almost right here following earnings, and then it gets bought up, and now it's kind of above that range and flagging. This could be a decent trade if it tries to get into this gap right here. We got a couple big gaps right here that this thing needs to fill. So that might be interesting. I don't really know fundamentally where Roku sits these days. I know there was a lot of griping about it when it was going up in 2020. People hated it because they thought it was way too expensive. You know, all that complaining goes. People who aren't in a trade love to complain about how expensive stocks are when they go up. And maybe they were right eventually, but they missed out on this big move right here. Um, Back in 2020. This is the pandemic crash right here. But this thing went from 65 all the way to above 440. I mean, that's a hell of a move. But you can see again, this is the theme with these stocks. These big pandemic runners flamed out in mid 2021 in the high fours, and then no big deal, just down to $40. Just a nice easy correction. you know, I mean, it obliterated people on the way down right here. And now it's been trying to base out. I think this chart is messy as hell for the most part, but
Yeah.
I do like how it's starting to shape up here. And again, just thinking like bigger picture, like if these stocks kind of come back into favor real quick, if we continue to see the good feelings about some of these former growth runners, this could percolate. This could break out. It is flagging right here, and I think it's above an important area. This this mid 67-ish pivot. We don't have to be exact here, but I think if this thing pushes and closes above 70, I think we can maybe see a nice little run out of this. It might not be a terrible trade.
Yeah. Um, just a question from the chat, and this one came from Chuck. Is there this is kind of back to big picture stuff, and we get right back into charts, Gunner, but
Yeah.
like any reason why you think we're seeing the pullback right now? Is it mainly just because like we're kind of back, it's kind of like back to school time where it's like, okay, we might be getting a little change in trend and some money's moving places?
I mean, I think it could be a number of things. I think the market might be a little tired, um, just from everything that happened in August. Computer's slow right now. But I mean, like we said earlier, and this is just the S&P, we were talking about the market in the terms of like maybe this is a shorter term downtrend and what it would need to do. And remember when we were talking about it during the yen panic and me saying that like, okay, I don't think this is necessarily the most probable thing, but I said if you need to get if you want me to get bulled back up on this market, we're going to need to break back above this 54.20, 54.40 area and kind of break the shorter term downtrend that we're in. And it did it right away. It didn't even look back. And when I first talked about that, I said that's probably a low probability outcome. I initially thought that we would just need to see some more chop. I didn't think that the market was necessarily melting down. I thought things got a little shaky, obviously. The yen carry panic spooked some people. But I thought the rest of August would be spent kind of digesting that move lower. And maybe we would get a bounce back up to the top of this range, and then we would see maybe a retest or an undercutting of these lows, and then we would rally. But that's not what happened at all. Instead, we got a giant V bottom and the quickest recovery ever from a corrective move like this. And so after that, I'm not really surprised. All things, if I put on my earmuffs and I ignore the fact that, Powell said we're definitely gonna, cut in September and everything else that's going on in the world. If I just pretend like that doesn't exist and we're in a vacuum right here, this chart makes sense to me because after such a strong recovery, yeah, I would expect us to chop sideways in kind of a wide range a little bit. And not only that, but like we were sneaking back toward these all-time highs. Why not give it a minute? Maybe we need to shake the branches again and scare some folks and sneak back down, into the
Yeah.
5,400 area. Maybe that's what needs to happen here. I mean, nothing's necessarily broken at this point. This is just one down day where we're down, 125 basis points. I mean, what we're at the bottom of this like kind of choppy range that we've been in since the market kind of peaked out right here on Monday the 19th. We've just been sort of going back and forth ever since. I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily. I mean, if we do start trending lower right there, it'll be interesting to see where this thing finds support and where we go and how wonky things are going to get in September. But I mean, as of today, I don't know. It's the Tuesday after a holiday. We got some, we got some red in the commodity space. We got some red overseas.
We got a little bit there. There was a little bit of yen talk. And again, it was
Yeah.
like rate hike in yen territory, right? So it's like you could maybe attribute some of it to that. But yeah, if anything, it's probably just people waking back up and realizing, hey, like do we want to have all the money where we want in some of these, I mean, pretty high flying tech names? So
Well,
like
yeah, I don't want to read too much into it. I mean, like we've been talking about the Nvidia. I mean, like all things considered, following the earnings report, like I'm totally fine with this. And I think if you're like a longer term semiconductor bull, then you shouldn't mind this at all. I think the folks that were just mesmerized by this big ramp higher that, started melting up late last year, they're the ones that are, you know, banging their head against the wall. The YOLO traders, or the people that just want to see this only go up. But I mean, this is perfectly normal behavior. There's nothing. I don't think there's anything fundamentally wrong. I think this is just a case of expectations are sky high to the point where even the best possible earnings report couldn't impress people, and it just needs more time. And so with Nvidia doing this, with SMH, you know, uh, moving lower here, maybe this is a lower high, and we just need to chop along. I mean, it's right back here to where it topped out in March. This is the semiconductor ETF, by the way. This is SMH, but it's right by that nasty bearish engulfing candle that we got back in March. We're just right back down to that level again, and let it dance around a little bit. These stocks deserve a little bit of a break. So let's not read anything more into it than that. I don't think the chip market is just imploding, at least not yet. And then as for the Magnificent Sevens, this is the Brown Tail Magnificent Seven ETF, the mags right here.
basically just looks like Nvidia.
Kind of a similar look, right? Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like a lot of these stocks have been doing kind of the same thing. I think there's good and bad charts, or good and not so good charts, or rather, in the Mag Sevens. Like I think Meta, we were just dogging on Facebook, but I think Meta looks pretty good here.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I like them fundamentally too. I
but look
just
at but look at how nice the chart looks. It looks. I mean, it's been consolidated really nicely near the top of this range for quite some time. It might move a little bit lower here, but like there's a very clear breakout area above like 541, 545, maybe up there. Depending upon how low this little drawdown takes us right here. But this is not a bad looking chart at all. I think it's one of my favorite ones.
they just need to rename the company at this point again.
Again, just
And
take it back to Facebook.
it was such a quick move to be like, oh, we're just gonna rename it Meta. And it's like that was like it's like Google, at least they're like we went to Alphabet, which is like weird. I don't know. Like they need a more overarching name, and Meta is not going to be that because they did it because of the metaverse, which is very, very nichey.
I've been really good about calling it Meta because of the ticker, but I will never call Google Alphabet. It never even I
Yeah,
forget all the time that it's Alphabet until you just mentioned it. It's always going to be Goog or Google. I
yeah,
mean,
it's true.
that's just what it is. So, I mean, yeah, I think like it's funny. Like that's one of those anecdotal market things where like if a big company changes its name or whatever, then it's time to maybe sell and get on the sidelines for a while, because Meta changed its name and ticker uh at the end of 2021, which is pretty funny. It was like I want to say it was like right around in here that they announced it, which was like the top. I don't have the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it was somewhere in like Q3, Q4 2021. I remember it happening, and I was like, uh-oh. And I mean, it got absolutely crushed. Did not perform well at all. I think it was one of the worst hit, all those comm services names, like Netflix and Meta, and those all took a big hit in 2022. But as always, like, it's fun to joke on, like, kind of quirky CEOs like Zuckerberg, but I mean,
Yeah,
he has a history of always, um, like, how do I say this? Of always helping his vision come to fruition. Like back in Meta's early days, or back in Facebook's early days, like people weren't really confident in him when the company first IPO'd, and then he showed he could pivot to mobile, and then the stock went straight up and didn't look back. And now maybe we're in a similar situation where everybody kind of joked on the whole, like metaverse pivot,
yeah,
and Facebook has gone back to crushing it. So,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I kind of wish I would have, Monday morning quarterbacking and all this stuff. I kind of wish I would have noticed it earlier. But like, you can also see things as is fundamentally speaking again.
yeah,
But Facebook, which is Instagram too, and all this stuff, it's like they are absolutely taking a different tack. And it just happened in the last, like, the reason I got excited about it is like it just happened in the last like 2 or 3 months. I'm seeing way more. conservative advertising on Facebook. So they have had a fundamental change. And again, it's like you can see Zuckerberg and whatever his comments were last week, where he's
Yeah.
like, is sort of owning up that like, hey, the government tried to get us to censor stuff and do this and that, and we did, and I'm ashamed of it. And now they're taking like, this is my crappy fundamental analysis, right? But like, I think most of the Facebook base now are older conservative people.
Yeah.
They're
You're
not
right.
like teenagers. The teenagers are on Instagram and all these other things that we don't even know the
They're
names
on
of.
TikTok and Snapchat. They're not on Facebook.
Exactly. Exactly. So guess who's on Facebook? All these conservative people. And guess what they might just be opening up in the last 2 months? All sorts of conservative advertising, right?
Yeah.
Where they weren't doing it before because they didn't like it. And how do I know? At Paradigm, we've got multiple things going on, but one of the things that we've got is like we've got a macro political Jim Rickard space. We couldn't get anything on Facebook. And right now we're starting to get a little bit of traction on Facebook. And that is just recently. So
Yeah.
that's a sign of the times, but they might be playing to their base. They might be like, hey, we're not the metaverse anymore. And we
Yeah.
know we've figured out how to make money. And Zuckerberg's actually got it together.
Yeah, and I think this is definitely a chart to watch if you're longer term or shorter term minded. I think that this is really shaping up. And again, yeah, it's down today, and these are probably like what 2 week lows that we're plumbing right here. Yeah, just about. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, you'd have to wait for this thing to firm up, but at the same time, I mean, this is a nicer looking longer term chart. There's nothing broken about this. And again, like you were saying, like you said, that's like bad fundamentals. Those are actually really good like fundamental points. I think that matter for a stock like this. And I think that combined with the fact that everybody is always picking on like Facebook and initially saying like they got it wrong, like, oh, they paid $1 billion for Instagram. What a joke. Like, well, look what that's done. They control, you know, like like that entire area of the web, which is just like, sharing pretty pictures.
I
So
just remembered too the other reason why I like them. I'm sorry, this isn't like an advertorial for freaking Facebook, but I don't even know the position. But I think like I like them. I think I want to establish one. The other thing is they own WhatsApp. WhatsApp is
yeah,
a very, very legitimate messaging software. I think I said this on this call. This
huge
was
overseas, huge
a
overseas.
month, month and
It's
a half ago.
becoming bigger here in the US. Yeah.
Yeah. I got a survey from them and they were asking me all these questions and somehow I filled it out. Like normally I'm like, zip it, Facebook. I'm not doing your dumb survey, but I was like, oh, I'm going to do this one. And they were asking me all these questions. So like, what messaging service do you trust? And everything for me was like iMessage, like Apple's messaging system. And I think they're trying to come at iMessage with WhatsApp. And if they have any prayer, if they even get close, that's going to be gigantic. So you've got opening up a conservative base, possible upside with WhatsApp. They've got Instagram for the youngsters. They've got a nice offering. So Gunnar, there was a Ian wrote in the chat. He was looking at D nut, which I believe is Krispy Kreme, DNUT. Anything with that chart?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it. I
Let's
will.
take a look. And then there was one more, I think AVGO. We're going to look at that one as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, I think this is like shaping up too. And I mean, this is like I think this is going along and obviously like it's getting messier the further back we go here. But stuff like this, um, these consumer stocks, if we are in a situation where tech continues to get hit, I think that we could see some interesting like rallies, amongst other areas of the market, or right here. And this could be one of them. I mean, this is a nice looking base that's firming up right here. And it's pushing higher today, like rallying off earnings right there, consolidating nicely off those earnings. This could be an earnings drifter that just keeps on drifting right here. And like, I would say if this can close up in here, up in the mid 11s right here, I think it's got a quick road to 12 easy, which is where these hires were back in May and back in June. I like it. I like an idea like this in this type of market. I think this is a cool idea. Other things that aren't tech
You
that
want to
are
hear my fundamental analysis? This will get Holly, wherever Holly is. She'll like this one. But it's like, I feel like donuts, it's a comfort food. Like if stuff's going bad, you're like, I'm just going to go to Krispy Kreme and grab myself a donut. Like, lost
you
my
go
job. But,
you go to
at
you go
least
to
I could get a donut.
you go to Krispy Kreme on hot donuts now when that sign gets lit, and then you just whip the wheel. That's the rule with Krispy Kreme.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I guess that's squishier analysis right there. Like people aren't doing so good, they're just going to eat their troubles away with cheap Krispy Kreme donuts. That's a very Matt
Crying and
Matt
donuts.
analysis of that. But along the lines of like stuff that's not tech that's moving up that has a really good chart. What about sneakers? What about those OnClouds? Do you own a pair of those? You probably
Yeah,
don't.
dude. I was just talking about this yesterday. I don't think I'm gonna buy them for my running shoes. I wear them as like just regular little like just shoes.
Do you like them?
Oh yeah, I like them. There's something weird about them, but like I like them in general. They're nice. They're easy to like. I like getting them on and off. But like if I'm going running shoes, Asics, Asics all the way, baby.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, yeah,
But
everybody has.
on cloud, very trendy and very not cheap.
Oh, they're expensive.
Yeah, that's like Nordstrom shoes, dude.
Nordstrom shoes.
Yeah, like
Well, that's good. I mean, like, and look, this chart is a beauty. I mean, I own a few shares of uh this
I
stock.
didn't know this traded. All right, let's get into this because this is very interesting. These are
You didn't know
expensive.
about
Anyone
this?
doesn't
How did you
know,
not
this
know
is a
about this?
shoe that says like ON on them, and they're like weird. They're kind of
Clouds.
nondescript.
They got the little open circles in the bottom of the feet.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I've never tried them. I've seen them. I've never tried them on. I'm very
No, they're
particular
very nice.
about the running shoes that I use, but I mean, maybe I need to give them a try. I mean, I do own a few shares of the stock, but like, I think this is flagging right here. I mean, this thing has been a monster, and you can see like, again, this is the yen panic lows right here, um, in early August. I mean, straight up off of those lows right there, and then broke out and didn't look back above like 44 ish, and now it's flagging again. I mean, really, really strong stock right there. It might be tough to get into if it just keeps on rolling, but like, I think this is an interesting story just because it's a relatively new brand that's gaining a ton of traction as like some other brands like Nike have been absolutely destroyed lately, and this is Nike right here. um it's been a real dog, and we've talked a little bit about the stuff behind that in weeks past. There's some, what is it Ackman who's in it now? There's some activists that are getting Nike or whatever, but anyway, poor Nike. Hasn't looked good for some time now. But then you see this upstart here on OnCloud shoes, man. They're rocking and rolling. And then look at this. We're right back up to those post IPO highs. This thing IPO'd, so we got a big IPO base.
I
Is the
wonder what
bigger
else they sell. Do they sell anything other than
zoom out.
shoes? That's how you get me on board this thing.
What do they need to do?
They need to sell something other than shoes. So it's like because I think they have a very good brand. It's like Yeti. When Yeti started making dog bowls and like God knows what, that's when they just started blowing up in a good way for the chart. Now it's pulled back and whatnot. But like if OnCloud does other stuff, that's where the upside is because then you're going to start seeing like I bet if we polled everyone like right, you can write into the chat right now. Have you seen like yes or no? Yes, you've seen OnCloud and know what it is, or no, you haven't. Like I bet there's a good amount of people that haven't ever seen it that don't know what it is. And once it starts going out, people are gonna be like, "What's in that? What's that weird logo on the people's shirts and whatnot?"
I don't know
So
where my face is in the screen, but I'm pointing up to the chart. This is your Yeti, what we were just talking about. That used to be a great trading stock.
yeah, that was a wonderful
It's
one.
since become a hot mess. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, maybe it's trying to base out a little bit, but it's nowhere near as nice as like a
I think
Roblox.
you got to keep going back. You keep going back to 2020, and that's when like dog
Oh
bowls
yeah,
came.
no, yeah. This was like, look, this was
Dog
the
bowls.
pandemic right here, and this thing went
Yeah,
straight up.
everyone had all that disposable income. They're like, you know what?
I'm gonna buy a
That two
thousand
hundred
dollar
fifty
cooler.
dollar lunch box
Yeah,
is looking pretty good.
everybody was camping, right? You got to buy the $1,000 cooler.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, this is obviously like it topped out in November of 21, just like everything else. And I mean, this was a expensive growth name, is what it came down to, and it got walloped. And it's been trying to base out ever since then. It's got more work to do, obviously. Like I'm not running out and buying this thing tomorrow. I just wanted to throw it up there since you were talking about it, and it is a
yeah.
stock we've talked about a long time ago in the past. But but yeah, like this one, I would put this one almost in the category of like the other, like pandemic bubble stocks. Like we haven't talked about those yet today, but we've talked about them in the past couple of weeks. You got your Zooms,
No, I
right
got
here.
Zoom.
It's
I'm
still
sitting in
consolidating
that
pretty
one.
nicely. It's actually green today. But I mean, this thing, I mean, talk about nobody liking it. I mean, it looked like it was going to just completely fall apart into earnings, and then it exploded higher. It was up what, almost 15% in the day. Then it followed it up with a few more 3% days, got over 70, and now it's just sort of hanging out just below $70, trying its best to like complete this base right here. It has some work to do here. And if this is flagging, and it doesn't give back too much of this, then it could come up here and break above 73, 74, which is what I think it needs to do to really, really get going, to prove to us that this isn't just, another blip that's going to get sold off. But I mean, this was one of the, all-time worst looking beats in the history of the market, just from a winning to losing perspective right here. This is the end of 2019, early 2020. This is the pandemic crash way back here. And you can see what it did, $71 all the way to almost $600.
The worst. Like they had the biggest lead in the world.
They had the world at their fingertips.
Ruined it. That's like, you know what this reminds me of? I don't know why. I'm in a funky mood this morning, by the way. This reminds me of Game of Thrones when they just went out and they were like, we're done. It was like the biggest show in the whole world. Everyone wanted it. And they're like, we're done. Well, this is it. And then they ended it in like quick, dumb fashion.
Nobody liked it.
It's like Zoom had everybody. All they would have had to do is do something to keep people or make some money or, spin off something. I don't know. Something smarter than I could think of. But like, man, you had such a lead. Now it's gone.
Well, like we were talking about with Enrique about this, right? And how like we're all kind of in agreement that like somebody's going to come and buy this thing.
I
agree. It's not going to go to zero. Someone's going to scoop it up. The platform is worth something.
Yeah.
And somebody can make it work. I don't know who that somebody is.
Like a Microsoft, a Salesforce, XYZ. There's probably 5 other companies that would be in the realm. And then all of a sudden you're just like, thanks.
Yeah.
I just took it, and then they could probably make it into something good.
Yeah. That's just it. Like, so like either they get their act together or somebody buys them. I think it's one of the two, but I don't think this is a zero. But yeah, as far as like trading is concerned, I'm very interested to see like how it finishes this consolidation right here, and if it really, really gets its mojo back and starts kicking higher. And then something that might be a zero, might be buy up 8, it's Peloton.
I'm glad you didn't type Bitcoin in.
No. No.
Peloton. We're getting about that was the segue. We're gonna get there.
I have a laundry list of Bitcoin complaints. I'm angry with Bitcoin right now. I'm always angry with Bitcoin. I'm starting to really hate crypto though. But that's my old man rant. I'll be getting into that shortly. But looking at Peloton right here, I drew this line at $5 because it's $5. It's a round number. Did not poop the bed on earnings, so that's impressive. Was up 35% the next day, and then pushed higher the next 2 days, and now it's consolidating, in the 450 range. I think if it dances around here a little bit more and then creeps up on 5, you got a quick breakout. What if it goes from 5 to 6? That would be a hell of a trade. This is a nice chart. I like it. It just needs to do what it's supposed to do. But yeah, the more you go back, you know the story behind this one.
Yeah.
If this went from, let's see, right here, this is January of 2021 when it peaked out. This was every house is going to have 3 Pelotons, one for every living area. And then it went.
Well, it's not actually the piece of equipment that's in the house. It's the network of trainers and
everybody loves the trainers. It's the subscription fees, blah blah blah. All stuff.
It was like this.
Yeah, and now, like, I guess before this earnings report, we were back down to iPad taped to an exercise bike. So that was so that's the sentiment shift that we've endured over the past few years on this one.
Peloton zing by something called the outdoors.
Yeah, or
people are like, I'm just gonna go outside.
People are back at the gym wiping their nose on their sleeve and then touching all of the gym equipment. Nobody cares anymore. So, again, I think Peloton probably has some pieces that are worth saving, but at the same time, got to wait and see if it actually breaks out. There's no point in trying to quick call these bases on these stocks because they could easily fail. That's the main thing here. And I think I guess Chewy is one of these two. Has it not been looking too good? I haven't looked at it. It actually looks pretty good, but it's been a while.
Chewy's such a different business. That's literally just like, dog and cat food delivered to your
Right,
house.
yeah,
Like
but I
that's
still
more like an
lump it
Amazon
in. I
thing.
still lump it in because it was a big pandemic stock. So I
Mm.
lump it in with all the other ones because it was a hot trader back in 2020. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can see this one trying to bottom out here. Messy chart. The farther you go back, here's the pandemic crash right here. It was down to 20 some bucks, and then it rallied all the way to 120, and then it found its way back down below its pandemic lows, by the way, below those post IPO lows, just totally falling apart right here, down to $15, and finally found a floor. Has posted some decent earnings reports and has had positive reactions now to the last two reports, very big positive reactions, up almost 30%. Kind of flamed out here, but has been building back up. This thing's a little wild, but at the same time, I feel like it's firming up and starting to look a little bit healthier. Maybe this is flagging right here and it can break out if it can close above like $30. It hasn't been able to close above $30. If it can do that, then I think it can run. But I'm keeping one eye on this one. I don't love it as much as I love like Roblox, but this is a good chart too.
All right. All right. Dare we go into the the world of crypto
Oh,
and
it's getting crushed again since we started.
and the unknowns?
I am so we talk about getting scared out. It scares you out or wears you out. Well, I'm worn out. We were talking about this late last week, Matt, how just like Bitcoin has put us through the ringer big time um, so far this year. And these are some of my old lines that I had up right here because I like the 60,000 level in Bitcoin. This is what I was talking about when we put on the Mara trade um, right here in late August. I was saying, look, just to recap, we got tech zooming higher right here. Bitcoin is still just consolidating. If the market is going to improve, then Bitcoin's going to catch up probably, and those correlations are going to snap back. And so let's take a stab at something like that. It did for a minute, and then it decided it didn't like it up here, and it ran into some sellers in the 64K range and has fallen back down. On Sunday, it looked like it was going to roll over again. Like
Yeah.
I was getting, and I typically don't check, the markets, in the middle of a 3-day weekend. Why bother? But I was getting alerts on my phone of like various cryptos dropping, and I was like, oh no, what's happening here? And we have Bitcoin sneaking all the way down to the low 57s, and it was like, oh man, is this going to be lights out? Are we just going to get pummeled on Monday morning or on Tuesday morning when the market opens? But no, it did it. It did the thing. Bitcoin always does that thing where it looks like it's going to break down, and it's a holiday weekend, and then everybody starts buying it. Like markets were closed in the U.S. yesterday, and Bitcoin looked like it wanted to rally back up towards 60K. I was like, oh man, here we go. Like maybe this is going to be like a fun, oh, just kidding, little weekend rally, and it's going to firm up, and it's going to take us back over 60K, and this was all just a big mess, and then we could maybe, I don't know, glide higher for a change and shake out some of those weak hands. Nope, right back down lower today. And so we've just had 3 back and forth days in a row. I know this is an incomplete candle because the day ain't over yet, but still, this is wearing everybody out. It's not just me. I'm sure that a lot of people are like, screw Bitcoin. Like we're gonna be stuck here forever. Because I mean, look where we are. Follow the yellow brick road here, this red dotted line. We're right back to where we were at the end of February. We've gone basically nowhere since late February. Um, it's tough. It's tough to hang through all these swings, and then you get these scary moments like, on the yen carry panic day when, I mean, it was getting sold down here below 50 briefly. So what happens from here? Is this more chop? Is this going to break down? Are we just in this sort of like wide ranging zone between like 55 and 65, and we're just sort of stuck here for the time being? I don't know, but I have a feeling that like there's a lot of people that are just like, I don't want anything to do with this right now because it's cried wolf so many times. So and again, this I'm gonna file this under wishful thinking because that's what it is. But if I feel this way, then everybody feels this way. Most people feel this way. And maybe that will give us some sort of tradable low and to help this thing move higher. I'll believe it when I see it. but that's my analysis on that. And also, um, there were some other movers yesterday. It wasn't just Bitcoin. I think Solana was moving, Ethereum was moving. It's back down now, you can see, but Ethereum was trying to firm up too, and it's right back down to where it started. So it's not just Bitcoin. This has kind of been rippling through all of crypto right here. Nothing is sticking, and it's
How are the
getting
miners? How are the miners looking? I mean, they got to be getting
well.
under pressure.
We
You
have the
guys have
we have the Mar
tomorrow.
trade on there. It was getting thwacked earlier this morning and got bought back. And now it's still getting hit. It's down almost 5%. So it's getting hit pretty hard. And I think again, this is a symptom of getting worn out. If Bitcoin catches here, it'll catch, but if it doesn't, we're gonna have to bail. But the other ones, like what's CLSK doing? It's getting
Hammered.
pumped. I mean,
I
it's
don't.
down
Yeah.
11%. Mara's looking much better than some of these other ones. Riot's the same way. I mean, just getting slammed. So we're in the best of the worst, at least right now. But that doesn't really. I mean, that's a crappy consolation prize.
Yeah. But that one does look noticeably better.
Yeah,
Mara
it
looks
does look
noticeably
noticeably
better.
better, but it's not going up. It needs to go up. Or we're gonna have to pound sand if it doesn't. So, I mean, that's where we stand right there. But Bitcoin now back below 58K, once again, and just stuck here at its lows. Like late last night, it was in the mid 59s. Looked fine. Not so much this morning. So again, is this just like September, something bigger, just a choppy range? I don't know. I hate it. I hate looking at it. I hate talking about it. I'm over Bitcoin so much right now. And I mean, the chart says it all. Where are my all-time highs?
I don't know. I think you coined a phrase earlier when you called it cryptocurrency. See,
Cryptocurrency.
there's no censorship today on Tuesday. When we have a Tuesday that's a Monday, we just say whatever we want.
Well, we can say
Cryptocurrency.
whatever we
That's
want
not gonna
anyway. But
it's
yeah,
crap. That's fine.
yeah, yeah.
All
We're
right.
we're doing cryptocurrency right now. I'm not a fan. Not a fan
All
of this.
right. Let's see. What else is on the agenda list that we can hit up? Anything feel good?
Um, well, I mean, we gotta since we're getting toward the end of our hour, we gotta start talking about lunch. And the bowl economy is very important to us. And Chipotle is firming up, or it was.
Hmm?
It's down today, but I think that this move lower is over right here, and this is an interesting little study right here. See the S right here? That's your 50-for-1 split. So we got the big split right here. Of course the split happens, and then everybody sells it. So can we get a little post-split firm up, and then can it close back above like 57 and run? I kind of like that idea. I think, this suffered from being overhyped, way too many eyeballs on it, all that stuff, and then the split happened. And, the Johnny come latelys all get punished because they're all playing the split. Well,
Yeah.
they ate it, and now it had the CEO get poached by Starbucks.
Yeah. We gotta like you can point. There's certain times you can look at a chart and you point to things. That's the Enrique low, dude.
That's the Enrique low.
We were on the call and Enrique was on the call with us. He's like, hey, this thing's overblown. I like it here.
Right
And it
here.
was in that little, is
Yeah,
that a
it was down
shadow if it's
here.
below?
It was like at
Yeah,
49 bucks.
yeah, they're like 49 bucks. So good
Yeah,
call. Good call on
that's why
Enrique
Enrique is
there.
the man. But yeah, but yeah, I mean, I'd like this to firm up. I think it looks better than what's Kava looking like right now. I think Kava might be suffering from too many eyeballs too. Oh no, Kava's really strong still. I mean, it had those blowout earnings, and it's actually hanging on to all those gains. That's pretty impressive. Actually,
Yeah.
if this theme remains strong, then maybe this is flagging too. And if it can get here and break into the 117s, 118s, then it can run again. I wouldn't put it past it. We have this nice IPO base that it broke out of and retested back in April, and it's been bonkers since then.
What do we
It's
got on
great.
Sweet Green? I don't know. Is Sweet Green, is that SG? What is it?
Yeah, but
Sweet.
it looks Sweet Green doesn't look good. I think I looked at that earlier today. Yeah, Sweet
Yeah.
Green's it's kind of rough. Like
Sniffing.
I think it needs more work. It's been falling though. It's been filling this earnings gap. It was looking good in late August, but yeah, it's turned the corner. Like it doesn't look bad longer term, but it's filling that gap pretty quickly. So we'll see where it lands. But yeah, man, the bull economy.
Yeah. What about this has nothing to do with bowls. This is burgers. What about Shack?
I haven't looked at Shack in a while. It's a
I
great.
know. That would fit in. I'll say this sentence really slowly. No, say it's not
Looks the
fitting.
same as Sweet Green.
I was thinking it was gonna fit in with like Krispy Kreme. People are like, at least I can buy a hamburger. I'm real sad just eating hamburgers.
This is not you don't get it in a bowl. You just have to pay triple what you would normally pay for a hamburger, and you get a Shack burger. They are good though. I mean, it's really good.
Good. There's a little chicken, the chicken shack, dude. Chicken shack's
Chickens
good.
are the chicken's good too. Everything at Shake Shack is good. I'm not a big fan of the Shake Shack fries. The crinkle cuts, I don't know. They don't
I
really
like
do.
it. They're good.
They're fine. They're
All
fine.
right.
It's not the
Any
best.
other Biotech? You were saying this earlier. Biotech was green. You were saying it in the green room.
Yeah,
Biotech was green early. Is that anything decent looking there? Anything with micro caps? Anything? Ooh, yeah, that's looking good.
it's gone red. I mean,
Yeah, but the chart
yeah,
looks decent. Oh,
so these have reversed. We were green, like XBI was hot out of the gate. It was green, and now it's retreated back in the chop. It's still very, very constructive chart. This is like all in the rotation scheme of things. So I mean, I like this. I like this chart. Um, I, I need to see it go. I don't know if we're going to be stuck in the spin cycle for how long. Small caps are getting hit pretty hard earlier, but I like the chart still. But this is just a mess. I mean, this has been a hot mess. Ever since this breakout flamed out. And now we've just been, and this is what small caps do. They're like, hey, we're breaking out. Just kidding. We're in this massive chop and we're just going to eat you alive. So, I mean, that's been the story with this since all the way back here. You can see all this mess when it broke out. And this was a big breakout too, by the way. Back in December during the melt up, it was like, oh man, small caps are going to be the big leaders heading into 2024. And then Nvidia was like, no, they're not. But you can see this big breakout right here, this big base breakout, and it got messy and then underperformed, and then it just exploded in July, and then decided that the yen was scarier than everybody thought, and then it built its way back up, reclaimed 200. It's just a messy chart. I'd like to think that it firms up and goes higher, but it's getting slammed today. We'll see how it turns out. But I still have my eye on small caps and biotechs. I think they're decent rotation options. We're just going to need to see if the market facilitates this type of trade right now, in September. We don't know if that's going to be the case yet, but it is on my short list.
all right. All right, Gunnar, I'll give you the last word in a second. At first, I'll give you a little time to think about the last word. I'm going to crap on three things. I'm going to try and make like 99% of the people watching right now, I will make enemies with them with these three things. I think there's three things that are like commoditized that are going to be turds. I think crude, because I keep saying it. Now I'm just going to say it louder and heavier. Unless something crazy happens, right? Middle East, Russia, blah, blah, blah. Crude, guess what? Goo coming out of the ground. It's very abundant. That's the first one. Second one is like weed stocks. Again, we got to watch out. We got people around the office. They love the weed stocks. It is a weed. It grows real easy. Like, don't think this is going to be the second coming of something magical here. And then the third one, here's the big one, the big turd. But when it comes down to it, semiconductors are a commodity, right?
Oh,
Like Nvidia, they had this gigantic first mover advantage because people were like, that's a dumb video game processor stock, GPUs, that's dumb or whatever. They just built this huge cushion. But when you come down to it, 2, 3 years from now, come on, does Nvidia belong in the same category? This is where people are going to hate me. Does it belong in the same category as like an Apple? I don't think so. I've seen headlines out there that are like, oh, it's the next Apple. It's like Apple actually has this brand that is just all over the place in a good way. Nvidia is like, we make these little commodities that go in computers and they don't even make it. It's like they have all these different parts that like, I don't know. It's a
well,
mess.
I mean, I see where you're coming from there. I don't know if I agree with you. We'll have to see.
So watch out for those commodities. Watch out for those things. I feel like they're abundant, all that stuff.
Well, it used to be back in the day that like semiconductors, nobody wanted to invest in those stocks because they were cyclical stocks. They just were.
Coming
It was just
back.
like, yeah, you get like, um, they weren't super exciting, and now they are. I guess it depends on how much you buy into the AI argument and how big it's
Yeah.
going to be.
I guess I got to like
Maybe
the
how
tip of
quickly
the
it's going to get
spear, I
there.
guess, way out there. Maybe there's just some magical technology that keeps on going and it's ahead of everything. And that's where everyone thinks NVIDIA is. It's like, all
I
right.
think I think there's in any big secular trend, there's always going to be these moments where there's going to be people that all of a sudden everybody starts doubting it, and there's going to be multiple instances of that.
Yeah.
Through I mean, it's happened to every great industry in existence, and we can point to specific examples. Like I think Amazon's a good example of this, where it was the next big thing in the 90s, and then it was, what was the Barron's cover, Amazon.bomb, when it crashed in 2000, and everybody was like, oh well, and that was kind of the nadir of the internet's just a fad, we really haven't figured this thing out. And all it was the fact that everybody's expectations got way too far ahead of themselves. Everything people said in the 90s was correct about what the web would become. It just took a lot longer, and it always does.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the situation. That's my overarching big picture thoughts on things like NVIDIA and AI, is that like we are in the hype cycle right now where, this is the next big thing. It's going to change the world. And I think it will, but I think the timetable of what we think it's going to be and what reality is going to be obviously pushed way forward.
Yeah.
And it's going to take longer than people think. And that's always the case. Like if you look back at what people were saying about tech 10 years ago, I think we're all supposed to be in flying self-driving taxis right now, right? We're a little behind. We always are. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see how it all shakes out. But I don't necessarily think that means that like NVIDIA is not like a world-beating company. It very well could be. I think there's a lot of chatter about it being the next Dow stock and that sort of thing, and maybe that's warranted. We'll see. But for right now, in the short term, semiconductors are getting hammered today. This is SMH. And I think we should just sit back and relax and see where this thing ends up. I don't think there's any need to like make any big bets one way or another on these particular stocks right now. There's a lot of eyeballs on these. Nvidia's getting pummeled. How far is Nvidia down right now? Yeah, it's down like 7.5% plus right now. I mean, it's
110.
skidding pretty hard. So like let's let it be.
My
See
puts that expired on Friday are now, they would be in the money, right? That's how it works. That's how it all
how it
works.
works. That's how you know it's going to go down more. Is like you have puts expiring, it'll go down more the next couple of weeks for sure.
Yeah. All right. Anything else anyone needs to know week over week? We'll be back next Tuesday. Gunnar, anything else to look forward to?
And that's it, man. Let's buckle up. It's September, baby. See what we get.
Let's get some trades on. Let's keep an eye on this rotation, and we'll be tuned into the chat at 8:30 every morning, and we'll be tuned in the top trades next Tuesday. Thanks everyone for chiming in the commentary. We realized the OnCloud results are in. I think most people did not know what it is.
Okay.
So there might be some upside there. We'll see.
All right.
But thanks for everybody. Thanks for all the comments, and we'll see you next time.